Today we're going to be installing a mud flap on a 2023 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. First, what you're going to need is you're going to need a 10mm wrench, and the kit that we got comes with 4 nuts and bolts, one for each mud flap, because we're going to need it later to put into the push pin, but I'll explain that later. Then any add-ons like a creeper or a ratchet. First thing we're going to need is the 10mm wrench, and you're going to start by taking off all the bolts here. First bolt. Second bolt. And finally, third bolt, but make sure to set the bolts aside from the bolt that came in the kit. Many of you might miss this, but there's a bolt on the bottom that you need to take off too.
Instead of using the 10mm wrench, I switched over to the ratchet because of the position that the bolt is, I think it'd be a lot easier. But it's up to you what you want to use.
Fourth bolt. Now we're going to be putting the mud flap on, and just to clarify, this extra bolt that is in the kit will go in this hole right here. You're just going to screw it into a push pin. The mud flap goes on like that, and you're going to put the 4 bolts that we just took out on first. Now that all 4 bolts are in, we're going to finally put the one that came in the kit in. So the bolt that comes into the kit looks about the same as the others, so I don't really think it matters. But you're going to put it in the place that there's a push pin. Usually there's a push pin here. You can take it out if you want, but for our kit, we don't want to take it out. It screws just right into the push pin. And so first I'll start by just screwing it in. And I'll tighten later. So now we're going to tighten all the bolts.
A little beginner's tip, or just a tip in general that a lot of people know, is you can actually tighten all the bolts by hand, not very tight. You don't want them very tight. And that's because you can move around the mud flap, so you can get each bolt into each hole. If like one way doesn't fit, then you can push it another way and get it in the hole. And then after all of them fit and they're all straight and everything, then you can tighten it with the wrench, which is something I wanted to explain there.
Make sure not to over tighten them because you can strike the nail. You don't want to do that. For this middle one, I'm going to use this because it's a little harder to get to with the 10mm wrench. So I'm going to use this. Now we're going to hit the one on the ground. We screwed all the bolts. We're going to move on to your 2023 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. So moving on to the front mud flap, it does help if you change the wheel a little bit and turn it a little bit because the bolts here are a little bit different than the back mud flap, because there's a bolt right here and then there's only two here. So because we turned the tire, there's the bolt down here is a little bit harder to get to if you didn't turn the tire, so we're going to need this attachment to the ratchet, which is going to help us out a lot. So there's 3 bolts that we have to take out before we put the mud flap on, so we're just going to take those out really quick. 2 right here and then 1 on the bottom. Here's the first one. Keep that aside from the one that came in the kit, like last time. Second bolt. Lastly, the 12 bolt. Third bolt down here, which I'm going to use the extension for the ratchet to get out. Third bolt. So now that we have all 3 bolts out, we're going to start by putting on the mud flap and lining that up gently. After you put the mud flap on, you're going to take the bolts and you're just going to put them in the hole. You're not going to tighten them all the way because you might have to move around the mud flap a little bit later. Lastly, the third bolt goes under here. Now that all 3 bolts are in, we're going to tighten them and then put on the last bolt. Once all 4 of the bolts are tightened and secured to the mud flap, it'll be done. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next video.